If you are an investor, maybe a wholesaler, flipper, landlord, maybe even a realtor or some other real estate related business, and you're tired of the high expenses, today's conversation is going to be for you. Now, this is a little bit of a different format, so bear with me. There's an app called Clubhouse. This is going to be, the recording is from it, so I'm going to go ahead and open the room, and I made sure to have this by the speaker just so that we can try to catch all of it. But this is going to be a conversation with a room of people. Hope you guys enjoy it. I want to talk with you about how you can become a known deal maker, and then also answer questions for the public.
It's just to get deals, and there's definitely better ways to do it. Hey, Courtney, how are you? We were just talking about you. Diana was just saying she wants to attend your class in March, and her friend does as well. So I'm about to put the link at the top. Courtney, is it best for CourtneyFricke.com?
Yeah, that works.
That's the best one?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. I'm going to do that, and I'm sharing the link out and getting some more folks up in here. But how have you been?
I've been doing well. I actually just got back to the house from my Thursday morning meeting that I go to locally, which is a deal-making meeting. And yeah, so just came back home so I can come and join and have this conversation with you guys. But yeah, and actually right before I got on here, I just signed a contract. So got back here, signed the contract that was waiting for me in my inbox. So I'm like, hey, it's a good day for a handful of reasons, but that's just one of them that makes it a good day.
Oh man, that's awesome. And I love that you are all situated down in Tampa, and then you are getting in the meetings and making yourself known in the area and signing, doing what she does, getting the contract signed. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, getting contracts signed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Look, and gotta love it. Yeah, I'll be at 2 meetings today. So technically, if you want to name this one, will be 3 meetings today. But just getting out there, it's so important to be in the room because you never know what those relationships might look like that come out of the people that you meet. Various things. So, for example, this morning at our weekly meeting here in St. Pete, we've got one that's at the local Denny's, and we use like their side room, and but I came across about 5 or 6 deals that it's on my list to research today. One of them, it's, a friend, we just moved down here to St. Pete, so we're renting, but we're wanting to house shop this year. And so I kind of said, hey, here's the target neighborhoods we'd like to live in. I'm working on things off market, but I also know a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So I'm opening my mouth in every room that I'm in saying, hey, we're looking, because ideally for us, we would buy something in this target region, like of neighborhoods that we've scoped out that we like, that we would want to live in. But ideally, I'd like to get it with owner financing of some sort. That is predominantly how I buy my real estate. And even though my wife can more than qualify for a bank loan, it's just not our preference. So nonetheless, I put that out there. A guy in the room put me in a 3-way text with a friend of his who had a property that sat on the market for 8 months and didn't sell. And she is moving out of the area and needs to sell. So the house is currently vacant. I think she's up, I don't know, somewhere up north, wherever she's moved to for a job. So he went ahead and put me in a 3-way text with her. So she has, basically it's an expired listing. But she was more so leaning towards selling it retail. So he never did anything with it. So with that being said, so that was one conversation that came out of the meeting I was in this morning, right? And then I drove by that property plus a second property on my way home before jumping on here with you guys.
Oh, I'm in the background sharing out the links. Oh, I love that. I'm smiling, moving, and shaking.
Awesome.
Doing what she does best, solving problems, networking, meeting people, and getting in front of the right people as well. And then, Courtney, how do you feel about that meetup compared to Louisiana? Is it a big difference, or real estate folks the same, whatever market you go into?
Yeah, so that's something that's it's a big difference. So for those I moved to St. Petersburg, Florida, which is right outside Tampa. From New Orleans. Now I'm still operating in both markets, as well as in South Mississippi. And I would say in Louisiana, between South Louisiana and South Mississippi, within a month, you can maybe attend 5 maybe 6 meetups, maybe 7, if you're willing to drive like an hour plus each way to attend all of them. Here in the greater Tampa Bay area, you can attend 7 a week if you want to. So I went, so know that, for example, different markets have different density of, investor meetup, stuff like that. As someone who ran an investor meetup for 6 years, I founded one and ran it. I'm a big believer in them for relationships, building your reputation, finding deals, selling deals, getting private money, all that. Additionally, though, this meeting, that's the Denny's meeting that happens. This one, it's a weekly meeting that it's strictly deal making. Who has cash they want to lend, who is looking to buy, who has something for sale, who has, like, for example, own a finance note they want to sell. For example, I put up today on the board, so again, it's a deal-making meeting. I put up on the board that I have 40 pieces of silver, 40 silver coins that I want to trade for like a little small car, a little small SUV, so that, because our other car is in Louisiana still. So I put that up on the board, and I got 3 offers today on that. And one of it was a car, we said we want a Subaru over Toyota. That's our preference. But we got 2 different offers from one person who would do a deal. They would take our silver in exchange for converting it to cash so that we could get that for, if we needed a different type of vehicle. Someone didn't want the coins, but they had the vehicle. And then someone offered us a vehicle that wasn't what we wanted, but could we still make a deal and make something make sense? Maybe, right? So I like these meetings. Like I said, I have like 6 or 7 properties that I walked away with from the meeting that I am looking to do some more research, and I'm calling those people to say, hey, let's talk a little bit further, because I think there's an opportunity to make an offer there. And so most markets don't have a deal making meeting like that. And so it's actually one of the things I look forward to most by living here and being in proximity to it. Because for years I had attended it when I was in town, or I attended by Zoom, but it's so different being in the room. But yeah, so it's a very different type of meeting than like one that's just networking, or it's one that is, someone speaking from the front of the room type of thing. So very different. And you just never know what's going to come out of the meeting.
Oh, that is amazing. And I saw something. I know that in the past you've done different trades for different things. And I know you can even like trade. I learned from you and Leon and all the gray hair guys that you have learned from. And hearing that you could trade items for real estate kind of blew my mind. Like, what? You could actually do that. Fatima is actually in the building. I just wanted to say hi to Fatima real quick. She's down in Florida, and she was saying that she wanted to get more deals. Like, she's having like a shortage of deals right now, and she wanted to acquire more deals. Fatima, I think you could definitely benefit from this conversation. So definitely stay put. And Courtney, that's one of my mentors. I think you've heard me speak about her. Creative investor, solution-based investor, prolific deal maker. She's right down in Tampa, Fatima, and she's going to all these different meetups. But today she's going to talk about getting more deal flow without the crazy overhead, and different ways to do that, whether it's through referrals or social media. So I hope everybody enjoys the conversation. If you have questions, come up, raise your hand. You all know that Courtney comes to pour. She doesn't gatekeep, so ask your questions in the chat or on stage. Please do not be shy. That is not what everybody showed up for. We want to help, and that's what Courtney is going to do here today. I want everybody to follow Courtney here, and then follow her on Instagram, Facebook as well. She has a great event coming up in March. We'll talk more about that towards the end, but definitely utilize this space. There's not many like this anymore on Clubhouse. It's more like a gossipy type thing. So when you have a teacher like Courtney come by to pour into the public, absolutely take advantage of that. But I am going to, and hello, Fernando and Drew as well. Tamala, my girl Bella, just wanted to acknowledge everybody and make sure you're sharing the room out as well. Okay. All right. Let's talk shop, and I'll be sharing a little bit in the background. So Courtney, one of the things, and I have a lot of questions for you.
Bring them on.
Do.
I
do.
I like them, huh? Let's go.
So I want to ask you this. You have relocated to get closer to one of the most prolific deal makers in the country. Like that's undoubtable. Pete Fortunato, and you're very close to him. You're one of his mentees. What would you say is one of the wow, I don't know. Oh my God, I have so many questions about this, but let me word this so it's not a two-part question. What would you say has been the highlight of being at those meetings and being in close proximity to your mentor? And then, okay, it's got to be two-part. And then historically, how has Pete gotten his deals? Has it been through systems, softwares, cold callers, dialers, tools, and crazy overhead? Okay, two-part, but I'll mute up. Go.
No, I'm laughing. I can't wait to answer the second part. Okay, so first one, for those who don't know, Peter Fortunato has been, he started investing in 1965. By the way, he did his first subject to deal in 1967. Has been, investing all along over all those decades. Still investing now. He's actually, we were talking this morning. He has some properties up in Boston that he doesn't know if it was going to close yesterday or today because of the blizzard, and that's a $1.75 million deal that they are closing up there. And there is a level that I moved down here, and I'm so thankful my spouse was in agreement with me, which is a whole conversation of itself. But I knew that, Pete never would have a, $50,000 mentorship mastermind, that I could just swipe a credit card or whatever and purchase. But when I met him in 2019, thanks to Leon Johnson, which is another name that was mentioned here, something in me stood up and said, oh my gosh, there's a different way to do real estate than what YouTube taught me, right? So when I got in the industry in 2014, when I started scaling my wholesaling and my flipping business, all the guys I was learning from, a lot of them were based out of Phoenix, and they had been in the business for about 15 years. They had, I grew up on the very early days of Bigger Pockets. And, so everyone was just talking about scale, spend money, do, on your marketing, bring on VAs, do all these things. And I did that. But then, about the time that I met them, I'm meeting guys who are doing what I would consider respectable amounts of deals and predominantly creative finance. And they never cold call. They never send direct mail. And, so I'm sitting here, I'm just like, what do you mean you got the results I'm aiming for, but you're not having to go through the hell I'm going through, right? Stuff like that. And so what has it meant to move and live by him? Just this morning, I usually always park by him and I always sit by him every time we're in the same room. And so then when we walked out on the back end, I almost felt selfish because I basically ended our conversation because we're leaning against the car talking. And I'm like, all right, Pete, I got to go, got to get to the dogs. I had to go drive by those two properties before coming here for this. But like he will, if he's got to go, he's got something to do, he'll go. But what I appreciate is the moments that we get that are not rushed. When he had to do something with his car one day, so I drove him around for 2 days. And he was like, are you sure? I'm like, no, I want that. Like, you don't understand. I would swipe a freaking credit card for this, right? I got to go to a closing with him very early on, right? And so today, like, for example, I'm sitting in the meeting with him and a guy puts up 4 properties on the board, 4 rentals. And he just says, I will sell he puts 4 rentals that he has. He puts, how much they're rented for. Like, they're rented for $2,200, $2,300, whatever. And on the south side of St. Pete, and, he's like, look, I'm asking $325, or no, he didn't even say a price point. He said, look, I'll sell them at a 10 cap. Y'all go figure out where you need to be at, but I'll sell them at a 10 cap, this whole 4 properties. And then right before that, we had a lender stand up who talked about DSCR loans. And the average rate for a DSCR loan is 7%. And Pete carries around 3x5 cards, these little index cards. And he wrote, and I have it saved in my notebook that I carry around. He wrote 10% cap minus 7%, DSCR loan. And he wrote in all caps, that works. And he looked at me and he said, you need to go research those 4 properties. And so his brain is putting together the numbers and in a way that's so fast, a lot faster than mine, but I'm learning from him of how he spots opportunity. When he talks from the front of the room, like, okay, that's all specific conversation, right? Of what, when he's teaching and stuff like that. But to hear him and to see him in front of deals, how is he translating opportunity? How is his mind working in that way? I cannot tell you, I can repeat so many of his stories and I can tell them word for word because I've heard them so many times. But to be able to hear stories I've never heard before since 2019 and spending a lot of time with him, there's so much value of being near your mentor. I think very few people get this privilege in life that they have a mentor that they get to spend a lot of time with. And so it's an absolute honor, but it has been so impactful. Even, I would argue to say even since August, I have not been here as much because, we went back to New Orleans, we got married, we had our honeymoon, we had the holidays. And then, so we've just past the first of the year, been able to like kind of breathe and whatnot. So yeah, we've been here since August, but we're just now starting to get into a routine where I'm, more consistently here. So that's been impactful. Now, for your second part of your question, how does Pete predominantly buy his deals? One of the most convicting lessons I have ever learned from Pete. I'm going to tell it to you in a story. Pete goes to McDonald's 6 out of 7 days of the week. The one day he doesn't go, he goes to Denny's, which was this morning. And when Pete goes to McDonald's, it's 8 a.m. He's like Warren Buffett. He goes every morning, right? I would consider him the Warren Buffett of really real estate, but for sure creative finance real estate. And, sits at the same table every morning. He's been going to the same McDonald's since 1986. Early December, we're sitting at McDonald's and a guy walks up. And we had been there for about an hour and a half just talking. And a guy walks up, he goes, are you all the real estate people? And at first we're all kind of like, who's asking? But yeah, we are. And he goes, this older gentleman immediately points to Pete. He goes, you've helped me over the years. He said, I just got off the airplane from Dallas, and I'm here to go look at my brother and I. We have a rental property here right by the beach that is gutted, and we want to sell it to an investor. And I remembered that like over the last, since the 1980s, that his family has owned this property and they've had it as a rental. He had remembered stopping in for coffee, breakfast, sandwich, whatever at McDonald's and always seeing this, real estate guy at this table with people. And over the years Pete had helped this guy. And he goes, well, one of my first thoughts was I should go see if that guy is still at McDonald's and go see if he's interested. The guy says he has a gutted property, a block and a half from the beach, that was a rental. Him and his brother both live out of state. They're both in their 80s. One of them's injured, has a health issue. And, he was coming to town to sell it to an investor. I'm already out the door and being like, yes, sir, let's go. Come get in my car. We're driving to the house, right? Like, that's a motivated seller with a problem I can fix. But that is one example of how Pete has gotten deals over the years where he has helped people and he's been consistent. He's built allies who immediately come back to him when they have, a situation that needs solving, right? But Pete has always done a referral and repeat model. And the convicting thing that he taught me was, I remember one morning at McDonald's, we had a guy show up who was a real estate broker, and deals had not been, closing, so he wasn't really making much of an income, and he was starting to struggle. And so he said, I need some help. And Pete goes, I know you've been in this business a long time. How, you need to start talking to people. And the guy ends up telling that he had done 900 transactions as a real estate broker. And both Pete and I look at each other and we both said, have you tried calling 90 of the 900 and see if any of them are wanting to buy, sell, rent, invest, or anything like that? But much less the 900, right? And the conviction comes very early on. Pete said, when I had told him how I had done hundreds of wholesale and flip deals and, all these different things that I had bought, especially off market from where I was direct to seller. And he goes, well, how many of those sellers are you still in touch with? And I'm like, excuse me? like as if he's speaking a different language. He goes, no. You worked very hard to get that seller as a client. Tell me you're staying in touch with them. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I've got, stars going around my head. I'm like, what do you mean? No one ever, it was just an epiphany moment. And then also this level of conviction, because it was such a simple thing, but I can't believe I had never thought of that. Because if you think in the business world, when you have customer acquisition, you spend money to get a customer. And for us, it's sellers, right? Motivated sellers. And so you spend all this money to get in front of them. And then that person says yes. And then you perform on that yes. You buy the deal from them. So whether you keep it, you wholesale it, you do whatever, you made a promise and you kept it. And so that person should be someone you should stay in touch with, because they are now, they like, know, and trust you. Right? And I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I had stayed in touch with people over the years, how much more business could I have, earned by staying in touch with people who have already showed them I can perform, right? And when Pete did some research, and there was 4 families that he did 76 transactions with. 4 families earned him 76 different deals. Whether it was deals that they bought from them, referrals, anything along those lines. Imagine that. You get in front of 4 different people, and the next thing you know, you have 76 deals. That is something that's super powerful, and so many people are not taught this, which is why, again, I did all the cold calling, direct mail, bandit signs, door knocking, all of that. And I'm not saying that that's not effective, because I did deals with them. But it was always nails on a chalkboard for me. I hated, getting cursed out when I was cold calling and stuff like that. And so then, as a part of my story, I started shifting. And the end of 2019 and into 2020, COVID really gave me the opportunity to descale. I went from having 7 people who were helping me in an office. And at the height, I was paying like $7,500 a month in marketing, which is a lot for the greater New Orleans area, which is like nothing down here in the Tampa Bay area today. Ultimately, there's a level that I started to make that shift. I went from 100% of my deals were from prospecting, where I found the seller. But what happened, again, going back to, that was around the time that I started meeting Leon and Pete. And I'm like, wait, you're telling me that you're having such a high conversion rate of all your leads because they're coming to you warm as a referral, or it's repeat because it's someone you had already done business with you. So it is you're telling me there's a different way to do business. And so something in me stood up. And so it took a little bit of time. I eventually grew to 25% of my business was referral or repeat business, and then 50, then, to 100. And I would say probably about 90% of my business right now is referral or repeat, because I have just recently started getting back into public records and deep diving some stuff. But that's really just because I'm being nerdy about some things in the curative title space. But nonetheless, there is a level that so much has changed in my business since making that shift. But my goodness, no one ever talks about this anymore, right? No one, well, not anymore, but like in general, no one talks about this being another way you could do business, because the only model that gets preached, or that's like the squeaky wheel online, is, you got to go cold call, you got to go door knock, you got to SMS, you got to go bandit sign, you got to go do this, that, the other. And we're never really introduced to this other way, which is really referral and repeat business. And so much of how I do that is, yes, through networking and investor meetups, but it's also through my social media content, things like that as well. And imagine Pete, who's in his, late 70s, he's about to be 80 this year. Imagine if he had social media. He does not. But imagine if he had social media. So I'm combining old school techniques and methods with new school, which is, content and AI and different systems like that. And it's a huge, huge difference, and it just doesn't get the light of day.
Wow. And I hope people understand how powerful everything she is talking about really is. And I think more people don't, it's not pushed out there, because so many people are trying to sell a course, and and then when you buy that course, then they're saying, okay, well, to get these deals, you need this system, you need this software, and then they're passing out their affiliate links. Mm-hmm. Not saying there's, anything wrong with that. But, they are gaining from passing out those affiliate links. So, of course, they're not going to, at the beginning say, hey, do really great business, keep up with your sellers, and do repeat business. Business will continue to come to you if you do right by your clients. And if you follow up, that was a key point too. And I love that story, 900 plus deals, but how many sellers did he actually follow up with? Even if he followed up with 90, oh my goodness, he would have so many deals out of that. I think it's a mindset that needs to be broken, because I've seen a lot of people spend a lot of money and get frustrated when they don't get the results they're seeking. Courtney, what are some ways that and I love how you're combining old school ways with new school. What are some ways you've been using social media to get some clientele?
Yeah, so something that's really important is social media. Let me talk about. I shared the story of the guy who walked up and said, "Are you all the real estate people, into Pete?" And he had the property that we went and looked at and made the offer on. And there is a level that Pete showed up every day from 1986 until really today. He's 90+% of the year he's at that McDonald's. And Colleen, you've joined us there. And so really what I'm doing is the same thing as Pete, but instead of showing up at a physical McDonald's that you got to be in the room I'm showing up online. And so a huge part of that is, number one, I've got very specialized skills. So as someone who does creative financing and who solves complex title issues, my skill sets are not singular, but they're technical. I'll say that. For example, making a tax advantaged offer, a customized solution to someone's problem. I rarely talk about the houses. So for me, it's not, let me do all these before and afters of the properties. Although I've flipped, I've got rentals, my portfolios, I could very easily, on the construction side, show a before and after. That's not what I want to be known for. So for example, last year I bought a hoarder house that came from a referral, which, by the way, the contract I signed this morning would make our second deal we've ever done together with that person. And there's a level that hoarder house that I bought, it was actually the first house I ever bought. Yes, I've made money on it real estate wise, but I bought it for content purposes, and track with me here. I bought this hoarder house and I filmed a ton through it The guy had a eBay store that was for vintage collectible, stuff like that. And we got a lot of that stuff in the house. And so we got the house plus the stuff. So we didn't just hire a junk out company to come in, but instead we worked with a small crew to clean it out, to make sure, because we were finding, pew-pews and, ammo and silver and collectibles, baseball cards, Beanie Babies, even some a little bit of cash, not a lot, but some cash and stuff like that. So we were going through it, and we filmed a significant amount of content to that property. And then on the back end, we partnered with an investor on it who's there locally, who's tackling it and renovating it and all that. But my main goal was the content. I've only posted 6 videos from that house so far. From the 6, I have gotten 2 hoarder house leads. One of them that has a high probability of, well, actually, technically, I just got my 3rd one. I just got my 3rd lead from it just the other day. But through that content, what was I able to do? I am positioning myself. There's probably about 5 things I want to be associated with, and one of them is a hoarder house, often when it's inherited as well. And so again, I'm working on my 3rd lead for that. One is highly likely to be that's going to convert, right? And that's 6 videos. By the way, 2 of those videos have brought in literally like 2,000 followers just from those 2 videos. And my goal, and one of my goals in 2026, is to literally make about 100 videos about a hoarder house. And it could be everything was, hey, if you inherited a hoarder house, here are some tips. Or it could be, like not like a meme, but like, scanning across the room and saying like, POV, this all used to be money, right? Like something along those lines. What am I doing? I am trying to train the people that follow me, that are in my sphere of influence, to associate me with that as a solution to it. And then additionally, there's other things that I want people to associate with me. So when I make content, my goal is not just to make something that's funny, I'm just not going around interviewing people, random people in the streets, for no reason, right? Like I want to have a very specific message. And when I go back to my skill sets being highly specialized and technical, for example, I solve complex title issues and ownership issues. Well, that's like I can type that up and put that, in a post, but you know what works better? Storytelling. Storytelling is a version of selling where people don't feel like they're being sold to. So what am I selling them on? Me and my ability to get things done, to provide a solution. And so with content, my goal is to make my message damn clear. And my message, I don't want to get on this pedestal, but I will if necessary. My message is not we buy houses. And I think that that's lazy marketing. And I'm sorry if that's what you have your truck wrapped with. But the reality is we buy houses is such lazy marketing, because the downfall is, and I'm saying this like, let me hold your hand, right? I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. We buy houses then puts the translation into the seller, the person who's reading that. And they're going to say, I guess this means XYZ. Well, do you buy every house? No, not every house. We literally are working towards 5, maybe 10% of the population till we want to buy their houses, right? Those motivated sellers. And so that, there's a level there that we're responsible for our marketing and what people know us for. And so for me with content, I want my message to be dang clear so people know how to pick up the phone and call me for a certain situation. And that's how my phone stays ringing with opportunities where I may or may not, do a deal with them. But hey, I want them to be calling me for the right reason. And then we can go from there as far as making an offer, if it's something I'm interested in, stuff like that.
Ooh, I hope they are picking up what you are putting down. And I really love the part about storytelling, because that is a way to sell and to let, and it's so much better than we buy houses cash. I mean, come on. And, I know you ain't trying to call nobody out on that, but let's be clear. I'm a wholesaler. A lot of my wholesaler buddies, we will do it. We will do the very generic, we buy houses cash. Now, that is not going to get you those better deals. That's going to get you like a broad, that's not covering enough.
You know what, Colleen, you know what that does? That drowns you out in the sea of everyone else who says we buy houses. Literally, I remember very early on, like 2014, 2015, like in my beginning years of being in the industry, I remember seeing all the bandit signs, and I literally asked someone, I said, do they all work together? Because it was like basically the same. I thought they all worked together, and then each different phone number was like a different salesperson, like a different like employee. Because it's all the freaking same message. Now, could we argue that it's worked because people have gotten deals? I'm not arguing whether it works or not. I'm arguing whether if it's the right fit for you. So for me, I am contrarian. If everyone's doing one thing, I don't want to do that, right? Like, I want to stand out. So if I say we buy houses, I am going to blend into the freaking noise of everyone else saying we buy houses. So instead, I'm going to say stuff is, we buy hoarder houses. Is that very clear? We buy houses. It's vague, so therefore your client has to interpret if it applies to them or not, right? But we buy hoarder houses. Do I have one? No. Do I know someone like with one? Maybe, right? If I have one, yes, I should call them, right? Or we buy storm damaged properties, or we stop foreclosures. We buy fixer-uppers, right? Like, things along those lines are like important, right? To distinguish. And so with my marketing, I don't say we buy fast cash, any condition, whatever. Because what if a seller needs to close on their timeline and they see we close fast? They're like, well, wait, I need it to be, I need it to be a slower, like I have a seller right now that they need about 2 months for us to close because they're gearing up to move out of the house. And then if you're saying cash, as someone who buys with creative financing, I'm already, kicking myself in the butt and eliminating an option by saying, fast cash. There's a level there where I more so focus on not what I'm offering. People don't care about your offer. Let me be very clear. They do not care about your offer. They care about what your offer will get them. They care about what the outcome is. So you know what I tell people all the time? When I say, first of all, catch me up to speed what's going on with the house, right? So-and-so told you to call me, or, you heard about me from so-and-so, whatever. Catch me up to speed. What's going on with the house that you're considering having an investor in front of you talking about it? So let's talk. And they start telling me, and I'm listening for the pain points. And then ultimately I would say, hey, in the event that I can help you escape this pain point, right? The hoarder house that you inherited, that's just such a headache for you. You can't walk in the house without crying or wanting to throw up or, whatever. What if I were able to help you in the event that you didn't have to take a single thing out of this house? In the event that, you and I can agree on a price, but you don't have to remove another thing out of this house. Is that something you'd be open to and interested in? Okay, great. Someone's telling me how they're struggling making their mortgage payments. The house has just become too expensive with the insurance crisis, all that. So in the event that, for example, well, tell me this, in the event that I could take over making your payments for you, and we, can do this, as soon as next month's payment, is there any reason why you wouldn't be open to considering something like that? Understand, I'm trying to align my message. I'm trying to align my offer with an outcome. And so if you're messaging, my biggest problem was for like the first 5 years of my career, I didn't post a single time about all of the houses that I bought. And at that point, I had done a good bit of business. At that point, I was scaling because all my, I was hiring coaches to help me with my scaling problems at that point. And I had left so much freaking money on the table because no one knew what I did. Like, I was just not vocal about it. Unless they were directly involved in a deal or, they had heard me talk about it recently. I was not posting about it. And I left so much money on the table because I literally had 3 situations in my life that I learned about that were, a woman I had gone to church with growing up, this person, that person, they were getting foreclosed on. No one called me. Oh my gosh, I could have helped them. Stuff like that where, man, that is my fault. So I'm going to say this and I'll let you ask another question. In 2019, I went to a conference and it wasn't really my scene, but I will say I did learn something really impactful from that conference, which was this concept of, hi, my name's Courtney Fricke. If you don't know who I am and how I can help you, that is my fault. And the minute that shifted in 2019, I took my profiles from being private and I only posted about, travel, family, my dogs, what I was reading, food, whatever, to where I started talking predominantly of who I am and how I can help you. That is a huge shift that happened, and that was a part to starting to convert my business to more where I started receiving more and more referrals. And y'all, when you get referrals and you do repeat business, guess what happens to your overhead for marketing? Those deals start to become a lot more easier on your checkbook because you're not having to pay money every month to earn them.
I will never forget, doing the 42 deals in my first year wholesaling, and everybody's, oh, that's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, and it's also extremely draining because I have all these systems and softwares and I have employees and I'm working 16 hours a day. It's great making money, but it's not great to feel like you are working like beyond full time, right? Like overtime with no overtime pay. And deals do not close every week, but bills need to be paid every week. Your employees need to be paid every week. And I'll never forget coming on Clubhouse. Shout out to Kirk the Bank Barnes, who introduced me to the room where I met Courtney Fricke in. Shout out to all my Clubhouse friends. And then listening to Courtney, and I'm listening to her, and I knew she ran this like big wholesale operation. And I'm listening to her journey of how she went from that and got rid of all that overhead, but she's still doing deals. And not just like, we ain't talking no $2,000 deals, okay? Like, she's doing these big deals that actually make a big difference too because of the problems that she's solving, the people that she's actually helping. And she's not spending like a crazy amount of marketing dollars. She's not dealing with babysitting virtual assistants to the point she's burnt out. Like, I needed to hear more about that. And I'll never forget when I made that shift. It was when I finally fired the last employee. I had it. I was completely burnt out. And I said to myself, what the hell am I doing? I do good business. I network very well. There's no reason I can't have deals coming into me. And I made the decision. I'm not going to do it anymore. You all, it is so freeing. It is so freeing, mentally and financially freeing to let go of all that crazy overhead. It is so freeing. And it's so simple, too. Just like Courtney, and she's been giving great advice and great gems she's been dropping throughout, so I hope people are paying attention. Just as simple as following up with your sellers. You've already closed some deals, call back those sellers. See what they're up to. Check in on them. Actually care. Don't just go right into it. You got anything else for me? I have sellers, like one seller right now, because I've done good business with her and I've actually taken her calls or checked in on her. now she's trying to give me land in Bel Air. She's like, you could just have it. And I'm like, what? But there's other sellers that have come to me with more repeat business. But Courtney, I want to ask you this, and then I'll open it up. Like if other people have questions, I don't want to hog all the questions, but I get excited when Courtney's in here. But I want to ask you this, and I'm glad you made the decision to be vocal about your deals and start posting about it. How did you go about your branding? Because I think that's important too. And that's something I'm struggling with because, I'll post about this or I'll post about that. But when you go to your page, it's crystal clear. You are a problem solver. You're a real estate investor. There is no doubt about what you do. There's no confusion there. So how did you figure out how you wanted to brand yourself, and how did you get so disciplined and good at creating that brand?
Well, a lot of trial and error. Very early on, someone challenged me to reach out to 5 people in my life. And so if any of you guys are serious about this, I would encourage you to consider this exercise, which is there's 5, go to 5 people in your life. Go to a neighbor, go to maybe an in-law, maybe a cousin, someone you went to school with, maybe a coworker, something like that. So not, your spouse, right? But go to someone who's in your sphere of influence, but not maybe immediate, and say, hey, look, this woman, Courtney, challenged me to do this. Can I ask you, what do I do for a living? Or maybe be like, hey, what do you think I do with real estate? And ask them. And that right there is a strong test to your message. Honestly, what does it look like putting that up on Facebook? Hey, I want to make sure that I'm being very clear with how, what I do and how I can help. In your own words, what do you believe I do with real estate? And so when I called a handful of people, I texted them. The most common response was, I don't know, I think you're a realtor, like a real estate agent. And no shade on agents, but I've never been I've never been licensed as a real estate agent. But you know what that made? Okay, so they at least started associating me with real estate, but you know what? That's horrible because I've also never received a phone call to list someone's house. So the confusion is equaling no business, right? So a huge part of that was getting clear on my message and what do I want them to associate with me? Again, I said it earlier. I did not want to be associated with befores and afters, right? I don't want to be known for example, my renovations. Have I renovated? Yeah, a lot of renovations. But that's not what I wanted to be known for. I wanted to be known for, in my deal making, that I could solve problems. And so which problems? So some of the most common ones are stopping foreclosure. I buy hoarder houses. I can help people retire from being a landlord. I solve complicated title and, ownership issue properties, things like that. And so by getting clear on what I want it to be associated with, for example, if you're already doing deals right now, go look at your deals and the type of deals you're doing and start to see estate properties were 40+% of the deals I was doing. There's a percentage of deals, I would say, I would have to look and see what the history has been, but go categorize your deals. What was the overarching problem? Estate, pre-foreclosure, tax delinquent, retiring landlord, tired landlord, go categorize them and say, hey, you probably already have a percentage of, types of problems you've solved over time already for those of you who are actively doing deals. But otherwise, maybe pick one and start talking about that. Start, ultimately, I wanted to get clear on what I could help people with, because one of the biggest issues over my career, I would say, was I wasn't clear enough. Again, the whole that's part of my, my we buy houses, theology or not theology, philosophy, is that came because I realized and I started questioning my message, and I started saying, hey, if I say we buy houses, do people actually know what I do? And I started questioning in the marketing world, a part of that is if your client cannot clearly state what you do, that's a marketing problem. And so I started learning from, for example, marketers, not just real estate people, marketers, right? Started reading marketing books, and I started getting around. And then eventually, when I started seeing content as a strong driver of, building my brand, I started learning from people who taught about content. And a huge part of that is staying, again, in the content world, they have stuff like what's called content pillars. So I started researching what my content pillars, should be, and I, started getting clear on what that message is. And I'm always saying, how can I get more clear on my message? Because I want to have a clear message and I want to drive it home consistently, which, by the way, means I am not selling on my post, right? I'm not saying, contact me if you know anyone who has a problem like this. I do that very rarely. I'll post 7 times and then, I'm trying to not have like a call to action on my post all the time. I want to just, whether it's a education post, whether it is a entertainment post or an edutainment, which is a mixture of the two, if it's, something else, regardless, my whole goal is I want to have that clear message and I want it to be consistent. And so one little exercise for you is, could you go to your profile right now and say, do I have a clear message, or am I all over the place? Self-diagnosis, you could even send to a friend and say, hey, do you, go look at my social media. Is it clear what I do? And so even in my journey of getting clear, one of the questions I had to ask myself is, who is my main avatar with my content? And so I have 2 people who are my main content avatars, meaning the people who digest my content. And fun fact, it's not sellers. I am not being like, if you own a house, that is not my message. My main avatar is people in the industry. But fun fact, so many sellers reach out to me through my content. Fun fact, so many people who are in the industry reach out to me because they say, hey, I just, came back to Florida from being in New Orleans for a week and a half for Mardi Gras. And I walked 8 properties while I was there that all came from my content. And literally, 4 of them came from one person. Some of the other people, it literally came from people who followed my content, and I never met them in person until the first time I walked a property with them. One of them, as I mentioned earlier, I just signed a contract with them this morning, and it's now our 2nd deal we've done together. And the first deal we did together, I never met them until, the first time I walked a property with them last year, and they had followed my content. So a lot, and that's a person who is in the industry. This is an agent. These are pocket listings that they have. So there's a level there that a lot of the world and the way that I see my marketing, I'm not saying, ooh, what's my, postcard say? What does my letter say? I'm thinking, when someone watches my video, is it clear to them how I can help? Do they see me as someone on their team who can either help them or someone like their client? And that's a huge part, because I want to be a mile deep in what I am good at. And because I'm not trying to be everything to everybody. And so over the years, I've had to get clearer and clearer with my content, so much so that it went from me talking to sellers to me predominantly talking to people in the industry.
You definitely have to be clear, because you don't want people to be confused about what you do. Just saying, we buy houses cash. Yeah, that could work for, somebody that's just like, let me call that number. But being able to display the different types of deals you've done, or the different types of situations where you've helped sellers, I think that's way more powerful. And I could see a lot of people contacting you just because of the content. I love that Courtney said she is not putting like a direct call to action, like, hey, if you have a probate problem, or if you have, or if you're in pre-foreclosure, or if you have this. She's not saying, call me right now. She is, oh man, this is so powerful for many reasons. But one I could just think of immediately is it builds automatic trust because she is not asking them for anything. She is not. She is just sharing content. And if they reach out to her, they feel as though, and it is their decision to do that. It's not a forcible thing. It's not a desperation. Oh, call me now. Call me right now. I can help you tomorrow. I could close today. She doesn't have to do that. I hope you all see like how smart it is, the way she's positioning herself on social media. These deals are coming straight to her because they see what she does. She does it every day. She really lives it, and she's not trying to sell them anything. Wow.